Hey, it's Jeff Garber, mortgage expert and mortgage interest rate guru. Today is Wednesday, March 23rd of 2022. Wanted to give you a weekly interest rate update and a bit of a disclaimer. When I give out interest rates in these calls, they're merely examples. They are not rate quotes. If you ever do want a rate quote, I would need to talk to you specifically to understand more about your situation. But for the purpose of these videos, I like to use ranges. That way, as we go from week to week, we can see the patterns of whether rates are going up or down. Also, from an educational standpoint, since this might be the first time you're watching, mortgage rates come from the bond market. Specifically, they come from what are called mortgage-backed securities or mortgage bonds, and they trade on the bond market every day, well, Monday through Friday. And the bond market works a little bit different than the stock market. Basically, as a bond goes down in price, the yield or the rate is going up. So we're in the mortgage world kind of always rooting for bond prices to go up, because as they go up, rates go down. And what I do is I actually subscribe to a service that you can see in the background here that enables me to see the movement of these mortgage bonds so we can determine what's going on with interest rates. And when I show you these charts, they're real simple, very, very simple. Basically, red is a bad day, green is a good day. So understanding that will help understand what's going on with the charts and which way interest rates are going. So let's jump in. So last Wednesday was the Federal Reserve's meeting, and the Fed meets every 6 weeks, and they determine interest rate policy. And they decided to hike short-term rates by 0.25% last week, which typically helps mortgage rates. Why would it help mortgage rates? Well, first of all, you have to understand that the Fed rate that they raise is not long-term mortgage rates. They're raising what's called the short-term overnight lending rate that they charge banks to borrow money from them. So they did not raise mortgage rates like many people think. And oftentimes, when the Fed goes into a cycle of rate hikes, they're doing so to pull money out of the economy, right, to make things a little bit more expensive, so people slow down their purchases, which then in turn would slow down inflation. All right, inflation happens when there are people that are willing to spend a lot of money, and prices on goods and services that we buy go up. Companies know that people will spend the money and they raise their prices. And if inflation gets too high, like it's getting now, it's not good for the economy. And we can see that by what's going on with gas at the pumps and food in the grocery stores and on and on and on. So the Fed, a little behind the curve, decided to finally raise rates 0.25% short term, and they did that last Wednesday. You can see that candlestick right here. These are each called candlesticks, and they each tell a little bit of a story. Don't need to get into that too much. Again, red is bad, green is good. So initial Fed hike, markets did not like it, and rates got a little bit worse. All right, but if you look at, that was Wednesday. If you look at Thursday and Friday, you can see that the markets digested it a bit and realized, hey, maybe this is a good thing. So we had 2 nice days where mortgage rates came down a little bit. All right, then this past Monday, the 21st of March, Jerome Powell, who's the chairman of the Federal Reserve, he spoke and he kind of changed his tone from what he had said the Wednesday before when they had their Fed press conference and their Fed statement. Right? He basically a week ago said that the Fed was probably going to do a lot of 0.25% rate hikes for the rest of the year in the next six or so Fed meetings. Well, on Monday, he said, you know what? We got to get a little bit more aggressive and maybe raise rates 0.5 point at the next meeting. And we're still not sure what we want to do with our balance sheet yet. And those 2 statements right there caused both the stock market and the bond market to sell off. And not only did we lose all of our gains from last week, but rates actually went higher. So the Fed hiked rates last Wednesday. Thursday, Friday, they came down a bit. Monday, we lost all of that and they went a little bit higher. All right, then on Tuesday, which was yesterday, you can see that we sold off even more and rates went higher. We have a little bit of a green candlestick here because we actually finished a little bit better than where we opened, but we were still lower than we were from Monday. So far, Monday, Tuesday, rates went up, and here's Wednesday today, and we're having a little bit of a rebound day, which is a good sign, right? Maybe the markets overreact a little bit. The best analogy to use when it comes to policy, both in what the Fed does and even what happens in the mortgage industry, is the pendulum ends up swinging way too far in the other direction. It's almost like when you get into the shower in the morning and you turn the water all the way to the hottest position to get that water to warm up. Well, you've obviously overdone it because it becomes too hot, and then you have to back it off so that it's warm. And that's exactly what we sometimes see with the markets. And we may have seen that. We're gonna have to, really watch this. There's a lot going on right now between inflation and what's going on in Ukraine, all right, and Fed policy. Those three things are going to control which direction the market goes, at least in the near term here. So from last week to this week, we did see a little bit of everything happen that I said in last week's update. And we weren't sure exactly how the markets were going to take it, and rates did sell off and go up a little bit higher. They then recuperated a little bit, and then due to new language from the Fed earlier this week, markets didn't like it, and rates did go up a little bit more. Today, it might have been a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction, so we're getting some of that back. All in all, since the beginning of the year, rates are in a range of around 4.5. Again, this is not a quote. This is just a number to give you an idea of where 30-year fixed rates might be. That way, when we go from week to week on these update calls, you'll get an idea of how we're doing. So I hope this helps. I know it gets a little bit complicated, a little bit confusing, a lot of economics in there, but we're in the mid-4s right now for mortgage rates, which is not a bad thing. We're a little higher than we were pre-COVID. Could it get worse? Yes. Could it get better? Yes. Why might it get better? Because if the Fed gets in front of inflation, like they've done in every cycle that they've tried to in history, if you look that up, you will see every time the Fed has gone into a hike to curb inflation, inflation has come down and so has mortgage rates. We're going to be watching closely to see if and when that might happen in this cycle. But for now, historically speaking, we're still at great rates. All right, so we're not in a panic mode yet. We're not as great as we were, prior to the beginning of the year, or still in a nice range. So I hope these interest rate updates help you. If you have any comments, leave them below. If you'd like to talk to me, set up a time. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. We'll catch you next week.